Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fitness Academy's podcast. I'm your host, Siggy, one of the WFA's educators and a women's online coach. Today, we've got a special guest. She's not only my friend, but she's very well known, and you guys absolutely loved having her on last time, and that's why I've invited her on again. Everyone, please welcome Soph Allen. Sophie, welcome back.
Hi guys, thanks for having me back. That's a good hype to get me very excited to chat to you all.
Yes, so much hype. And today's podcast is actually going to be around business orientated, talking about content, hiring. This is actually quite valuable for our new coaches as well, who are just entering the industry and not knowing, where to take the business, how to navigate everything as a, one woman standing. So what better way to have Soph here with me chatting about it, because, she's built her business from the ground up and it's fucking booming and she's doing amazing. And to get her on today to just chat a little bit about it and hopefully give you guys a little bit more ways to integrate for your business.
Amazing. Thank you. You're so nice to come onto podcasts and hear people sort of reflect on what they see, you doing, because you're so used to seeing yourself and knowing what you're about, but you're like, is this actually the message and image that I'm getting across? So to hear it back, I'm like, oh wow, that make me sound really good. Thanks.
You're like, I'm making an impact. It's just like, yeah, you are.
Yay.
So let's dive first. We had this chat last week when we were training, but I want us to chat about what made you change your profile photo.
So for people who don't follow me or don't know, I don't change my profile picture a lot, and it's not necessarily a thing. It's just me being like, it's nice for people to see a profile picture and remember who that is. Because when you change it, I'm always like, who is that I'm following? Oh yeah, they just changed their profile picture. But I did, my app has a loading screen, or had a loading screen, and it was an image that I had done in a photo shoot back in 2019, and I was super lean. And if you guys listen to the podcast I was on previously, I did speak a bit about the weight gain that I had experienced and the mental and physical journey and transformation I had been on since then, gaining basically 10 kilos since then, really struggling with weight loss, and then entering a way more sustainable and practical dieting phase after maintaining that bigger weight for a while and trying to get comfortable there. So I felt like the app loading screen, it no longer represented who I was or the journey or the stage that I was at, because when I got there, I was still in a really, I wouldn't say toxic, but not the healthiest mindset in relation to myself and my body and my processes. I was still in that mindset of getting lean, got to get lean, got to stay lean, always dieting, but really struggling to maintain that, and it just wasn't sustainable, really. It wasn't healthy, and my version and definition of what health means really changed. And it actually came up in a survey or something that I did with my Train with Soph girls, and they'd mentioned something about that image, and I was like, that's interesting. I'd never really considered, that's just the app. I hadn't thought about changing the image. And then I did a photo shoot, I think it was end of last year, after that successful dieting phase, and I'm bigger, but not I look healthy and happy and strong. And so it was a big process to get it changed, because going to the app store and resubmitting and stuff can take a bit of time depending on who you've got on your team. But I was like, let's change this image. I want this to, it's a minor change, whatever. People might or might not notice. And so I changed it in the app, and I put up on my Instagram story, oh, cool, we've made this change. Now it's more reflective. And my DMs just blew up. People were like, oh my God, both TWS girls and non-TWS girls were like, this is such a healthy message to be promoting and sending to people. You look so much happier. You look so much healthier. Love that the focus is on your face and your smile and your flex. And, the previous picture was my ass and my abs, and I didn't look that happy in it. I was very serious. And I was like, oh, wow, this is grid worthy. I've got to put this up on my Insta grid and sort of keep that conversation going. And with that, I changed my Instagram profile picture to be that image, because I was like, you know what, that was a different phase I was in that old picture. Now I'm in a new phase, and let's roll with that.
I love that. And it's so well put, because it resonates a lot with the message these days. I find, I know, Soph, you've noticed the change within the fitness industry right now, that it's not solely focused on, getting that shredded look, the toned abs or whatever it is that we used to, strive for. Right now, it's like, hey, I want to feel mentally strong, but also be able to lift heavy shit in the gym. And that message that has come across, it's just resonating so much better with women these days.
I couldn't agree more. I just feel like everything, things go through stages and phases. And you look back on the time that we've been in fitness, or even before we've been in fitness, at least when I first started being aware of what was going on with women's bodies, was looking in magazines and seeing that phase then was super skinny models that were just so skinny. And there was no way that my body could genetically be that way and be healthy. So I was like always striving for that. And you just look back and you see these phases and different changes come through. And I think COVID really boosted this health-centric focus around what we do for training. And people are becoming really savvy and really aware of moving their body in conjunction with things like their stress and their cycle and their sleep, and being really responsive to what their body is telling them. And I think a lot of coaches and people are starting to realize this shift is happening, and it's the healthiest shift we've seen in the industry in a really long time, and it can only continue to get better from here. And hey, if anyone wants to get lean, like, great, that's still a great goal to have, because there's nothing wrong with wanting to change some habits that as a byproduct mean losing fat. But gone are the days of really just putting skinniness, thinness on the pedestal, and that being the only beauty standard that people are going to be striving for. So I think it's a really positive step forward, and I'm really happy to be part of that movement.
Yes. Oh my God, I totally agree with that. I love that. When we're talking about the shift through, the fitness industry, has that shift occurred a little bit inside the business for you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I guess when you look at the business, there's sort of two sides of it. There's the internal stuff that goes on within me and my team. And then there's the external stuff, which is what people see from what we're promoting, the messages we're sending. So always internally, I've got a really healthy approach with my team. Like, I really like they're all women that work with me. I really like all the girls to be really flexible with how they work. Everyone's remote. If they want to train during the day, then they can do that. I know they're really hard workers and they get the work done. And then for things like birthdays or illness or whatever it might be, I'm like, take the day off. I'm just really pro having a balanced, I don't know if the word balance is good, but having a flexible lifestyle. That's why I got into building my own business. I was yearning that flexibility and freedom. And I want the girls who work with me to have that as much as they can when working for someone else. So these are values that are important to me and within the business. When it comes to an external perspective, we've definitely had a shift, just because I have had that shift. And I think for a business to be successful, ever evolving and changing is good. You need to have your core values and things you stand by. Things like integrity and honesty, they're really important and they shouldn't change. But the messaging and the way in which you approach things, we're very careful and considerate about the language we use. And we changed last year from transformation photos to sharing girls' journeys. So we still share the goals and things that women have achieved, but it's not like, look how much fat she lost, transform in 8 weeks, things that just promote this message of a quick transformation. It's like, cool, look at how much she's lifting now. Look at the testimonial. We don't use, our cover picture is never a side to side. It's a selfie or a picture where they feel happy and vibrant. And then, we show a side to side, but they're not always like, look, drastic weight loss changes. It's like, cool, barely any change visibly, but all the changes mentally. So we've had a huge shift with that. And yeah, the language we use and the way in which we speak about certain topics and things, that's been a really important shift. And I think it's just a lot more inclusive as well.
I love the fact that you change it from transformation to girls' journeys, because that's something that I was challenged around, the transition that I was making from going to transformations to just client spotlights or client wins or non-scale victories for, sending out that message that, hey, it doesn't always have to revolve by the way you look. So many other aspects from that. How, with that change, have you noticed a mental growth within the community itself?
Absolutely. You see the girls talking in the community, in our Facebook community group, and their language is changing. And whenever they come to the group, just because language changes doesn't mean we eradicate all of those unhelpful thought patterns and behaviors. Women still want to get lean, and they still look at food or look at eating over their calories and feel guilty. But what we do next is really important. So there's a lot of deep work that goes into healing those beliefs and learn habits that we've created, and specifically women, because that's the pressure and that's society. But they don't just stop there. They don't go, oh, I feel really guilty for overeating my calories. They'll be like, I felt really bad, but then I looked at the progress I've made in the gym, or I looked at how consistent I've been, or I look at the fact that I'm not restricting the next day, which is a habit that I used to do. And I'm really proud of that. And that's the sort of thing that I'm really noticing. And when the girls are sort of hyping each other up and supporting one another, that's what they're saying too. Like, don't beat yourself up, or I did that too, or I used to do that, and this is what's helped me. So I feel like that language is really, it's getting into the community. And same as on Instagram, like we get a lot of feedback saying, I really love that this is the message you're pushing. Or another one is, I really love that you use references, because we're very much an evidence science-backed business, and we like to make sure the content we're putting out is supported by research. So people really appreciate that we're coming to them with the facts, rather than just like, oh yeah, this is a thing that might work. So yeah, there's a few different elements, but I think the language and the shift, and I think it's also really important to tell people when you're making those changes, like tell people and then follow through with the actions, or do it and then be like, by the way, we've made sure we've been changing some things, we've been changing our language. And then people are then like, oh, I'm aware of this, and maybe I can start implementing that in my everyday life or with my clients, whatever it might be. And the change might be small, it might be gradual, it might be big and fast, but either way, knowing that you're aligning with your integrity is really important when it comes to enjoying anything you're doing in life, right?
100%. I completely agree with that. And I literally have a question regarding that. So when you notice this transition of, the change in your language, the mental side of things around your business, but your own training as well, did you have a voice in your head going, don't do it? Or like that self-doubt that kicks in? You're like, should I, don't I?
Yeah, 100%. Because anytime you change what you're doing, especially if what you're doing is working, there's going to be fear because you're doing something different. So we use our past experiences and our history to predict what's going to happen in the future. If what we've been doing has been working, that's comfortable and that's safe. That's not to say something different isn't going to be better, worse, equally the same, which is why it's important that what you're doing is aligning with your values and what the message you want to be putting out long term. And it can be really, it's good now because the industry is really following that lead. Like I'm seeing it, it's a bit easier to do it now because we're seeing a lot of other people doing it. But you see a lot of companies that have built success on transformations, and that worked back then. But strategies change, people change, needs change. You have to work with what is meaningful to you. Otherwise, you're kind of in the rat race in a sense, because you're just doing things that, yeah, they work, but like they work if your goal is financial gains and not really considering what matters to you or what your clients need. So I know it's terrifying. And I had that too. I was like, oh, if we change cover photos and we're not showing these transformations, which are huge lead gens for us and get people to click through, then how are people going to know that we're credible? Or how do we show that? And it's like, well, you attract the right people, because the types of clients you get when you show 8-week transformation, lost 8 kilos in 8 weeks, which actually did happen to me, but like, that actually happened. You're going to get people who are looking for quick fixes and fast transformations and maybe yo-yo dieters. And they're the ones that would benefit way more on a sustainable, slow and steady, maybe reverse diet, maintain deficit approach, which is we're looking at 6 months to a year here, versus an 8-week deficit that hasn't worked for them previously because they are super restrictive. So think about the type of people you want to attract and work with, and think about the messaging. Is this the messaging that's going to get those people? If not, then it's a no-brainer to change it.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, because I'm sure our listeners right now, whether you're new into the industry or you've been doing it for a while, sometimes if you have this like fire within you and you're needing to make that change, make it. And I think, as you said, like a lot of us don't make that change and they just end up in this rat race, but then they end up resenting it all. They hate it. And, for whatever the goal is, as you mentioned, whether it's for like financial stability or freedom or whatever the goal is, still stay true to what you're actually wanting, to put out there. Like, what is the main message? And I love the fact that you also mentioned regarding the 8-week transformational photos, because I used to do that. You used to do it. And it's just like, you get all these clients in and like all these lead gen, you're like, yes, like this is fucking awesome. Like I'm on fire. But then one day it just hits you and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I need to make this change to make women realize, hey, it's not going to take you 8 weeks. It might take you 6 months to a year.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If you're coming out and you're like, oh, I feel resistance to sharing this message, but I know it works, so I've got to do it. That could be a little inkling that you're ready for something a little bit more meaningful. And that's not to say you change your entire business structure and flip it on its head and change everything overnight. Test, chuck some things out there that are a little bit different, see if it feels right for you. Like if you have a problem, there's a million solutions for one problem. So the way we're talking about it now, if that doesn't resonate with you, you don't have to do it. If you're not ready to take that leap and make that change, if it doesn't feel right for you, if there's so many different ways of approaching these things, it just comes back to what your values are, what message you want to put out there, what feels really good and empowering to you and your clients, and then see if people are responding to that. Because there are so many people in the world that need help with getting healthier and achieving their goals. And you're going to be the person that resonates with that person in a different way to someone else. Like I'm not for everyone. Siggy's not for everyone. Like there's going to be different people that just really feel connected to you. And if you're putting out something that isn't actually you're probably not going to enjoy your job for very long. And to be honest, I got to a point where I was like, what am I doing? I feel like I'm lacking a bit of purpose with my direction. And I'm really like, I'm not excited to come to work anymore. And I think it's really important to share that, because when I was doing that, I was like, oh my God, is this the wrong thing? Am I going to have to change? We're so quick to think that we need to completely change what we're doing when something isn't working. And it's like, no, just changing the messaging has been really helpful and more meaningful. And that's been an impact enough for me to be more excited about coming to work. But there are still days where I'm like, I'm dreading this task, or I don't want to do that, or I have to come up with content. I'm not feeling creative. Like, just so people know, I'm not always hyped to come to work, just like I'm not always hyped to go train. Like it's the discipline and the consistency that keeps you going.
Yeah, 100%. When you're referring to content, I think this will be a really good topic for us to chat about, because as business owners, you're wearing 100 hats at the start. When you're starting to establish your business, you're coaching, you're doing the admin stuff, whether it's phone call sales or seeing clients on the floor, but also writing the content side of things. Now, as you mentioned, there's days that you don't feel motivated. I hate that word, motivated.
Same. But it's true. People understand that word.
Yeah, but you don't feel creative to write a post or put up a video. So how do you overcome these obstacles? Like what's a way that helps you?
Yeah, look, just disclaimer, I am not perfect at this. I still have moments where I'm like, you know what? Nah, not today. I'm not posting, and then I won't. And this is something that I'm continuously working on and working to improve and figure out which way works for me. The best thing that I've come up with is I have moments of creativity and moments of just like my brain is flatlining, I'm tired and like nothing's working. So I just have a note section in my phone where I've got like brain dump, and it's just endless ideas of things that I want to talk about, or that people have asked me on Instagram and DMs, or that I've seen that looks really cool and I want to put my own spin on it. So that's what I do if I'm like in a creativity slump. I also try to get off social media because I find it's so easy to like get sucked into seeing what other people are doing and like recreating and just doing the same thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, because really no idea is original and you can always put your own spin on something, but you don't want to be just doing what other people are doing. You want to be doing what works for you and your community. So getting off social media and spending, like, it sounds counterproductive, but I think the women listening to this podcast would all sort of feel positive about this, but getting out away from work and having a bit of a break, or having some time in nature, or like being with your friends, and like ideas really come to you when you're not forcing them.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then the batching content is really good if you're able to do that. So something that I have is a content schedule, and we schedule sort of halfway through the month for the next month ahead. This needs to be flexible because the nature of content is such that trends come in, trends go out, things, there are things you need to be really responsive to and, reactive in a sense. And then there are some things that you can have as your core staple things that you're just going to be posting. So we'll plan it in advance for all platforms. And by we, I mean me and my content creator and my community manager. We all sort of put ideas in. It's really helpful to have a team. But I was doing this alone, and I do this alone for my personal accounts. This is for the business accounts that I have a team helping me. So we'll put down a bunch of ideas and what days we're going to be posting them. And then every single week I have like 3 or 4, 5 pieces of content that I've got to film. And so I'll just go to the gym and I'll either do it. The best way I ever did it was having a day specific for that content and just smashing out like 5 videos or whatever. Now I do it kind of during and after I train, just because I'm like, oh, I'm here, like I can't not, like, and I don't think that's the best way to do it, because then it affects my training, and then my training starts to become work, and then that sort of ruins your training. But these are the habits that I sort of slip in and out of. So either having a specific day or a specific time, knowing exactly what you're going to film, batching that content, getting your content, whether you pre-plan it and it's posted for you, or you have it in your drafts in your Instagram or your TikTok or whatever platforms you're using, and then it's ready to go. Now, in an ideal world, that is how shit runs. But most recently, I've been sort of, oh yeah, like my TikTok for my business and my Instagram are all great. They're all running on the machine. Whereas my personal one, I'm like, why am I feeling really resistant to creating on Instagram right now? I'm not sure what it is. Is it because I'm not organized? Is it because I'm still changing my messaging and I'm not sure what exactly I want to be speaking about? Is it because some things aren't getting the response I'm after? But the best thing you can do is keep going and keep being consistent and testing different content and seeing what works for you and for them. And it's just a whole thing, right? Content is it's this wheel that just keeps turning. And after 24 hours, the content you just put up is irrelevant because no one sees it. And then it's on to the next thing. So it can be a little bit disheartening at times, but I think you just have to change your mindset around it and know that you can put up something that took 5 seconds to make and it'll go viral versus something that took you an hour to craft. And you're like, wow, that got barely any views, loving this job. But yeah, that's why you got to try and separate yourself from the performance of your content and just think about the people that you're serving.
Exactly. Oh my God. There's been so many times where it would take me an hour to put up a reel and then I'll put it up and it literally gets like 100 views. And I'm like, great. Like,
Love that.
yeah, just, and then you spend like 5 minutes on a TikTok video and you get like hundreds of thousands people watching it. And you're like, what is going on? But again, like it's a matter of, a game. You just don't know. As you said, like the trends are just moving so quickly in and out.
Yeah.
And like Soph said, don't get so disheartened if one thing doesn't work, because within the 24 hours, something else could work a little bit better for you. And I love the fact that you mentioned that we need to steer away to get creative. Like even though, you know, on Instagram, you can find certain videos that you can recreate, save them, write your notes. But I find that with creating content, I find I'm my most creative, as you said, like going for walks in nature or just at home, relaxing, or even in the shower. In the shower,
Yes.
I get so many downloads of ideas and I'm like, whoa, I need to write this down before I forget it.
Yeah. Shower thoughts are the best.
Seriously, I'm just looking at your whiteboard behind you and I'm like, I should put a whiteboard in my shower. Like, it's too
My whiteboard literally all it says is Patchy Boo. Like Patch is my dog's name, and that's the extent of notes I've put on my whiteboard. I don't even know why I have it. Maybe I should put it in the shower.
Yes. Yeah, but it's so true. So, and I love the fact that you also mentioned about batching content as well. And again, that can look a little bit different for everyone. For some people, it might be just batching for the week or for the whole month, depending on how flexible you are with your schedule. Now, you mentioned the team effort. So what does that look like right now with you having the girls with you working on content and the business compared to what it looked like when you first started doing it on your own?
Yeah, I love talking about this so much because when I was trying to hire people, I was like, why is nobody talking about this? Why can't I find content? Who should I be hiring? Who's going to help me? And to be honest, I'm still figuring that out as I go because I have so many people who are contractors that work for me that there's like a lot of overlap. So I'm like, should I be condensing this down and just having one person? Like I'm just commitment issues with like hiring someone full time.
Yeah.
But they're all so talented. So I'm like, I want to keep you all. So yeah. And just on that with like the content batching, we plan a lot of ideas, but we don't necessarily execute it all in one and work a month ahead. So we usually work about 2 weeks ahead. And we have 1 to 2 weeks ahead. 2 weeks is ideal because then you're like not caught off guard. But yeah, we'll like brain dump heaps of ideas for the month. And then the actual content is shot 1 to 2 weeks ahead of schedule. So that really helps. And that's just like less overwhelming being like, excuse me, I have to create a month's worth of content. Are you crazy? I can barely even reply to my emails right now. So I understand it's a lot, but putting systems in place are a lot of work up front, but they're there for a reason because then they help you stay on top of things ongoing. And just as I'm saying this, I'm like, you're such a hypocrite. Like, why aren't you doing this right now for your personal stuff? I'm working on it. Okay. So what I do with the girls. So I hired a content creator last year who I'm actually meeting today to shoot with. And this is kind of the first time we've shot together, which is really exciting because it's nice to vary how you shoot your content, I think, as well. People really like variation. People get bored of seeing the same thing. And I train pretty much in the same gym and using the same angles and same machines. So variation is great for people. So this should be a fun experiment. So she and I've got her mostly for editing. So as it currently runs, we'll brainstorm every Monday. We'll be like, cool, these are the trends we're seeing. So she's really great at looking for trends. She's a Train with Soph girl. So she came through, she understands the platform, which is great. And she'll pick out trends and she'll say, you know, here are some ideas. And then I'll brain dump some ideas and we'll look at what's been working and be like, cool, let's do more of that. Or people will ask questions on our TikTok and we'll be like, cool, let's create videos in response to that. And then just come up with other ideas to test. And then I'll have my list of things that I need to film. So I'm the one that's sort of filling in what content. Like she might be like, oh, can you do a workout? That's glutes. So then I'll write that workout. Or can you do a technique do's and don'ts for RDL? So then I'm obviously filling in the blanks and then creating the content and shooting it myself. And then I give her that content. I write the notes for it and she'll edit all of that and then post them on TikTok. So then we've got our videos for the week. Whereas today she'll meet with me and we've brainstormed a few ideas, a few Facebook ads, a few TikToks and some reels, and we'll shoot that in the gym. And then she'll be able to edit all of that and that'll be good to go. I also have my community manager who basically works full time and she takes care of the community, emails. She's basically like, I'd be dead without her. Shout out to Bronte, who like literally keeps this business afloat. She is just so good. Any task I give her, like she just handles it so well. She's a PT, so she understands everything. We've got really similar philosophies. I think we're really similar people as well. So she kind of like knows what I'm going to ask. And all of this is remote. So I've got girls who are in Victoria, New South Wales, Sunshine Coast. And I've got Facebook ads done from a girl who's based in Canada. I'm currently looking for another editor for my YouTubes because that's not something that Liv does. So yeah, it's a constant sort of figuring out who's going to work where and learning it all together. But it's really amazing having a team. I remember having so much resistance to hiring someone because I was like, again, the work up front, the work to train them, the fear of relying on someone else, the fear of are they going to do as good a job or care about my business as much as me, which, you know, the answer is no, of course they're not going to, and you can't expect that of a person. But if you find the right people who are passionate about what you're doing, which I have, they care about people. So they care about their work, which is really amazing. And it can be really scary, but when you do it, it becomes really addictive because then you free up all this time for yourself to then have whatever spots you want to fill in your business, whether you're the creative and the vision driver or whether you're more that CEO type looking over like numbers and data and all that stuff. Like there's so many different things you can fill, and that's the fun of being a business owner. You get to choose that and choose who you hire for your weak spots and the strengths that you want to continue to work on.
I love that. And now, since you have a little bit more free time, what is your role? Are you taking on the role of more of the, logistics sides of the business, or are you heading in more towards the creative side?
I've been asking myself this same question because I think I like the idea of wearing the CEO hat, but practically I don't enjoy that. I don't want to be looking at like superannuation and numbers and money and comparing. Like that's just not where I thrive. And I think it's really important to be able to distinguish between what problems do I want to be faced with on a day-to-day. Do I want to be faced with coming up with content and ideas and creative, or do I want to be dealing with like hiring people and people's pay slips and all the CEO type things? Because being a CEO sounds cool, but I just feel like certain people are built for that and have that sort of brain. And I don't think I'm that person. So, I mean, currently that's what I'm doing everything. And I'm currently building a brand new app, which is taking a lot of CEO negotiation skills on the one hand, and then on the other hand, there's the visionary sort of leading the way in terms of where the direction that the business is going. And like, I love that. I love coming up with ideas for new campaigns. And we haven't been doing a hell of a lot of that because we've been waiting for this other app to get going. But now that's sort of on a standstill. It's I'm getting back into doing those campaigns and shoots. So yeah, I would definitely say the creative side, the content side, really thinking about the community and chatting to them and figuring out what their needs are. And that's definitely where I find my passion. But who knows, maybe down the line, I'll find myself hovering between and moving into a different space.
I love that. There's no better way of being able to just take a step back and look over at the business going like, what needs a little bit more, care right now, but still being able to enjoy those parts of the business. Like I'm like yourself. I don't enjoy numbers whatsoever. Like I'd rather just get my accountant to just look at that stuff and tell me if everything's like progressing really well. But again, sometimes you do have to look at those variables to have a better understanding of whether you are progressing to the way you're wanting to.
I find that's really common with coaches too, because we all kind of start out as coaches and PTs who are really passionate about helping people. Rarely do people get into this because they're like, oh, I love numbers and I love this and I love that. And I happen to also be a coach, but I want to focus on this stuff. And that's not to say no one's like that. Some people have both skill sets and that's amazing. But I just find a lot of people really value that helping people and the creative side and how you put content, whether it's content or whatever it is, check-ins and stuff. That's what people really like to do. So that's where they spend their time. But it is really important to have an understanding, if you're running your own business, of the day-to-day, the ins and outs, the numbers, the P&L, the cash flow, the spreadsheets, all that stuff. And that's something that I've really been working on this year, because I was the same. I was like, oh, my accountant will deal with it. But I'm reading this book, if anyone is interested. It's called Financial Intelligence for Entrepreneurs. And it's just the basics of profit and loss sheets and cash flow and understanding the lingo and understanding what things should look like and how to, they refer to it as the art of accounting, which is just like major nerd stuff. But, there is creativity within accounting as well. It's how you sort of read things. And I think that's been really great, even though, again, there's a lot of resistance to reading it, because I would so much rather read a book on self-development than accounting. But we're not going to love everything we do in any job that we do, whether we create it for ourselves or work for someone else. So it's just one of those things that it can be really beneficial when you're having conversations with your accountants or with people that you're looking to hire or your bookkeeper or whatever it might be, so that you understand why and what, and then you can also be part of the decision making rather than handing that over to someone else. So that's something that I've been working on more this year.
That's awesome. I think it's very important to have a better understanding of that aspect, because otherwise it can just get like all grey and miserable if you don't have a good understanding. I was, as you were talking, I was like, I'm just going to write this book down.
If I finish it, when I finish it, maybe I can give it to you to have a look at.
Yeah.
But,
so I think quick squeeze at it.
Yeah. Good luck. But I think no one knows your business better than you do. And I think particularly as women, it's really easy to think of something like numbers or an accountant as being like, oh, well, being an accountant is your field of work, so you know better than me. Whilst they'll understand accounting better than you, the decisions still have to fall on you. You're still accountable for every single decision, accountable and responsible for every single decision you make in your business.
Yeah.
So don't make a decision blindly. And I've done that many a time. I still do that. I'm going to do that in the future. But now that I'm aware of it, I'm like, okay, this is a little bit of a blind spot. Right now, I don't have a CEO, a COO. Like, I'm wearing all of the hats until I have capital to be able to fill those roles. And still, I want to understand what they're doing without being a professional in every sector. Having an understanding is really important, because, again, no one understands your business as well as you do. So you're the one that has to make those decisions. Whether you feel equipped to or not, it's still going to fall back on your shoulders.
Yeah, exactly. It's making the right decision at that time.
Exactly, which only needs to be 51% the right decision. Like, it doesn't have to be a perfect 100%. Yes, this is the way we go. Sometimes you just have to make super quick decision and be like, cool, that has to be made to move forward. And then we deal with the consequences, if there are any, down the line. And that's how you learn and grow.
Speaking of consequences, have you come across any decisions that you wish you did a little bit better or different?
Yeah, I think you're always going to get those. I feel like I'm in the midst of one at the moment, which contractually I can't really speak about. But basically, it's just, when you make these decisions, you make the best decision you can at the time with the information you've got. So it's really easy to look back in hindsight with more knowledge and be like, oh, I should have made this decision, or I should have got that piece of advice, or I should have done this. And it's like, but you didn't. You did the best you could. So you need to be able to accept that, because never in the history of any business ever did anyone make the right decision or the best decision every single time. Like I said earlier, there are a million solutions for every problem. There's a million decisions for every thing that pops up in your day. So you're going to make one. And if you just get stuck in this mindset of, oh, there's only one right or good decision, then you're screwed. Like you don't even, like, you have a 50-50 chance every single time you make a decision for it to be right or wrong. So you kind of just have to accept, yeah, that's the decision I made. It led to these consequences. And those consequences will get you to a different resolution, whether it was going to be the same if you made the different decision, but just 6 months later, or whether it's something different and you're in a new position that you couldn't have even imagined because you went about it a different way. So yeah, I am currently in a decision where I'm probably losing like 6 figures worth of money, which is, it makes me sick, and it's not pleasant. However, money is something you can always get back. Time is not. So if it's a time decision, if I'm losing time, I'm going to be more pissed about it than if I'm losing money. And again, like, or just in general, I'm privileged to be in this position and to be saying those things. So some people can take bigger risks based on their privilege and where they're at, and some people can't. Some people have to be more considered with the decisions they make, and I understand that entirely. So just remember that, like, no decision, even a decision that like breaks your business, you're not just going to stop and quit there. You're going to rebuild from the ground up. Maybe you get another job, and like, that horrifies me to think that I would have to work for someone else, but I'm still alive, and that is great. So it depends how you want to look at things. And again, like, this is a mindset I've really been working on this year. There's a couple of books if people want to check them out. The Power of Letting Go by John Perkis. Really, I listened to it in a week on Audible, and it really helped me because I was getting stuck in these patterns of, I struggle with anxiety in the sense that I constantly think about what could happen and what, like I said at the start, using history to predict what's going to happen. And we just don't know. And it just takes you out of the present moment. And I'm also reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And I know that's like an OG where if you're only reading that now, but I am only reading it now because it came to me at the right time. And they're really influential books, and they're really helping me to manage my anxiety. They give practical tips, like in John Perkis's one, sensory experience. So if I'm stressed, breathing didn't work for me because I'm like, okay, breathe. I think about like sensory. So if you're not watching the video, but I rub my fingers against each other. And that's like, okay, what do my fingers feel like? Or if I'm driving, what does the steering wheel feel like? So I come back to that sensory experience to anchor me. So these books have been really helpful with that, because running a business is like incredibly stressful. There's a lot of pressure on you, and working for someone else is incredibly stressful, and there's a lot of pressure on you. So everything comes with a struggle and a challenge. It's just how you manage it. I know I'm talking about a lot of different content and books, but I did listen to a really great podcast with Stephen Bartlett, The Diary of a CEO. I listened to him religiously, and he did a podcast with Matthew Hussey, the like relationship love guy. Love him. And his analogy was there's this TV show in the UK, and all these different chefs are given different ingredients. And so you're all given different ingredients. It's kind of like luck of the draw. Someone might get like this really great piece of steak, and then someone else is getting like a chicken, which is still great, but you need to work a bit harder to bring the flavors out. You're all given different ingredients, just like in life, we're all given different circumstances and challenges and opportunities. But what makes that recipe or that food come alive is the chef. So that's us. We get to choose what we're doing with our ingredients. We get to choose what we're doing with our situation. And books and content like that really helped me work on my mindset to look at things in a different way. And I'm no angel. I'm not perfect at this. I still get mad. I still get stressed. I still get anxious, but I'm a work in progress, and my awareness around these things has become really strong. And I'm really glad that this is the stage of my journey that I'm at right now.
So powerful. I'm really glad that we brought that up to just make people realize that, hey, you are, far from perfect. No one's perfect. We're all here as a work in progress, and whatever struggle that you're going through it matters to you. We're all in different stages of life, but it doesn't mean that because what you're going through right now isn't a struggle because someone else is struggling differently. It's just different levels. And as you progress in life, whether it's career, relationships, mental health, there's always that next level that's going to exceed in some form of stress, but you're going to handle it so much better by putting in a little bit more work around that. And I love that you also brought up the fact that, God forbid, if something does go wrong with the business, yes, you may need to work for someone or find another job elsewhere. But the beauty about that is you have the opportunity to do that. You have the opportunity to, if let's say the business didn't go well, you could do something completely different the next day. So there's always advantage for that. And I really want a lot of women to take that upon themselves, that if something fails or if something doesn't go right, that doesn't mean you're a failure. It means that pathway just wasn't for you, and it's directing you for something completely different. And the Power of Now is a phenomenal book that talks about that, to putting a lot of things into perspective for a lot of people.
Totally. And how can we just acknowledge how freaking hard it is in a moment of despair or struggle or uncertainty to adopt that mindset? Like, it's really hard. There's a reason there's this mental health crisis, mindset crisis going on in the world, because it's not easy, and it's not meant to be easy. And I think as soon as we grasp that fact, like training or like dieting, it's not meant to be easy. Why are we expecting it to be easy? Like, if it's hard, yeah, okay, you're doing that's, of course it is. So it's the same thing, like with the mindset stuff. It is so hard to step back when you're in the midst of it. And that's why I'm huge recently as well this year, like getting into meditation more. Like, I've always been a meditator, but I've never really felt like my practice has benefited me too much. And then I recently did this meditation course, and it's just a new way, a different way of sort of understanding the mind and how we process these things. So it's really hard, and it's an ongoing journey. And like you said, when you achieve some sort of mental growth or overcome some sort of challenge, there's always another one waiting. And we're kidding ourselves to think, oh, once I get through this, then I'll be okay. Then I'll be okay. And that's the mindset that Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now is really good at challenging and, yeah, changing the perspective, as you said.
Yeah, I love that. And that's something that a lot of people need to understand, that with growth, there's always going to be some form of other challenge, and it's going to challenge you. That's life, even though you get all these, gurus out there going like, yes, you can get your financial freedom and live the life you want. It's just like, yeah, you can, but you need to fucking work hard for it. It's not just going to come to you and someone's going to give you it on a silver platter. You need at some stage in your life to work that hard yard to get to where you're wanting to. But then eventually when you do, something else will pop up and you'll have to work a little bit harder. So, and it's so funny because like talking about this can sound so fucking exhausting, because we're always just wanting to progress and be better and excel. But that's the fucking beauty of growth. Like, you're noticing there's next levels of you becoming like more resilient, more disciplined, more committed.
I actually had that thought, I think it was today I do 2 meditations a day. So in my first meditation, I had that thought, and I was like, oh, this is fucking hard. Like, I don't want to sit here and like, I keep having thoughts, and it's really hard to bring my mind back to the mantra to like stop thinking these thoughts. And I was like, okay, what's harder? Letting yourself be run by that busy mind, or putting the work in now to try and have more moments of peacefulness, calm mind versus busy mind. And I was like, fine, that is the better alternative, but it's also the long-term one. And I want short-term gratification because that is what life tells me life is all about. So yeah, I mean, we're working hard against something that is constantly reiterated through social media, through every outlet. We're seeing people have quote unquote overnight successes, and we're seeing life look so easy based on what people put out there. So we think, why can't I have that? And then, it's just, that's not realistic. And what we see is only a quarter less of, what's reality for a lot of people. So it can be a pretty bitter pill to swallow, but, that's taking a baby step, and life is all about those little steps.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. It's all about those steps. Final tip for the new coaches out there in the industry.
Oh, final tip, just in general with it, I guess.
Just in general, whatever comes to mind. Go.
Just, can the listeners just know that I was not sent any questions prior to this, which is good because I prefer off the cuff. So I'm not prepared for this question.
No one ever is.
Look, I think, all right, I think if possible, it would be really great for you guys to seek a mentor. I started with a mentor this year, and we're coaches. We are mentors to people in their fitness journey, and we seek mentors and help for everything in life, for whether it's training, whether it's the doctor for our health, or the naturopath, depending if you go down that path, or the psychologist for our mind. So why wouldn't we get a mentor for our business? So the next question people are going to say is, where do you find a mentor? And I know, see, we've had conversations about this, because it's kind of like trying to find a psychologist. You're like, how do I know? And then I've invested all this money and time, and then I've got 4 sessions in, and I realize she just does not get me. So it can be really difficult. But like anyone trying to find a decent coach, you can do as much research as you can, do a discovery call, ask around, ask your peers, look for forums online. Mine happens super organically. Like, we connected online. She happened to be in the app tech space in like a huge scale. It was also within the health sector, and it made sense. And it's been so beneficial because I've learned a lot about systems. She's helped me with hiring people, certain questions to ask in interviews, setting, more goals and foundations within the business. And I would really recommend people look into that. And, we tell people to invest in us as coaches, and that is a worthwhile investment, as is this. So if you're worried about budgeting it in, then figure out a way to do it, just as we would expect our clients to figure out a way to budget us in, because you don't go to the gym once you're fit, just like you don't get a business mentor once your business is doing well. They go hand in hand and they work alongside each other. So if you can do that and find someone to help you down a path that they've already been down, then going back in our conversation about making mistakes, had I met this mentor back then, I wouldn't be in the mistake I'm in now. And she also had a mistake where it cost her $1 million. So she's passing down that knowledge to help me out of this mistake. And then maybe I can do that one day for someone else.
Yeah, I love that. So beneficial. I've worked with so many mentors, and every time I've had someone, they've just taught me something new, different, and what to look out for. And I think that's a really useful tip for a lot of coaches, because we as women as well, I can speak as a woman, we tend to take a lot on board and think that we can do everything, but realistically you can't. You need the help, you need the assistance. And if you've never put systems together, guess what? You're going to have to get someone who's done it before, who will be able to help you. And like Soph said, do your research and see if you vibe with them as well. Like, do they vibe? Do they have the similar values? Are they coachable? Are they, independent enough that they'll be able to guide you? You don't want someone to be holding your hand along the way, because, you're not a fucking baby. You're a grown-ass woman, but you still want to have someone there by your side to be able to help you to, have that growth spark within that business. So
I'd just like to apologize to all the babies listening to this podcast because they, in fact, are babies. So
sorry, babies.
savage. Sorry, mums that have babies in the car right now.
I love you all. I love you all. Cool. Any final words or?
No, but feel free to DM me if you have any like follow-up questions or like want some advice. I do endeavor to get back to as many people as possible. So yeah, feel free to flick me a message if you've got any questions, and that will also help inform my I've got a keynote speech coming up at the end of the year. So I'm like, cool, this is really good prep. This is going to help inform what I'm going to put together in my presentation. So we can help each other out.
Yes, I love that. Well, flick her a message. Otherwise, you can contact myself or even the Women's Fitness Academy regarding any, business ventures that you girls have. So if you enjoyed today's podcast, please make sure that you screenshot it, tag us at the Women's Fitness Academy, tag Soph, tag me. And then till then, just make sure you do you, enjoy your job, and yeah, aim for the sky, girls. Aim for the stars, not the sky.